This is the Blockchain Show with Steve Anderson and Ethan Kinderknecht. The Blockchain Show is a weekly podcast that demystifies and promotes widespread adoption of cryptocurrencies and distributed ledger technology. You're listening to episode number 1 for the week of April 24th to 30th. This week they will begin by talking about the history of money from the island of Yap.
This is the Blockchain Show.
I'm definitely excited that you are enjoying doing this, because I don't think you knew that you were doing a Bitcoin podcast or a cryptocurrency podcast when I first said, hey, you want to do a podcast tonight?
Yeah, I had no idea what it meant, I'll be honest. I was like, okay, this sounds like something I should probably know about. Normally I listen to podcasts to learn, not help make them. Hey, it's better. The best way to learn is to teach. I'm not exactly teaching, but I'm participating. So I dig it, man.
It's the old saying. It's like watch one, do one, teach one. Like you would watch, or listen to somebody talk about something, and you do one yourself, and then you teach one, and that's I don't know. This is kind of interesting. It's about the tiny island of Yap. It's a NPR story on it. I'm not sure if there's a better one out there, but it'll give us something to talk about.
The island is called Yap, and if you look it up on a map, it's just this tiny dot floating in the middle of the Pacific.
Scott Fitzpatrick has been to this little dot. He's an anthropologist at North Carolina State University.
Once or twice a week, they've got flights that pass through there. I mean, even today, it's sort of hard to get there.
When European explorers got there, one thing stood out. Huge stone discs around the village, outside people's homes.
If you scrub them, they're really beautiful. Just kind of this milky, crystalline white. And I've seen a few of these. If they're really cleaned well and they're out in the sun, they'll almost blind you. They're so bright.
These stone discs, this was their money. Yap doesn't have any gold or silver, but hundreds of years ago, explorers from Yap found limestone caves on an island hundreds of miles away.
And they carved this limestone into huge stone discs. Somehow they managed to bring them back on little bamboo boats. When the boats got better, they brought bigger stones.
You have a number of pieces of stone money that have been found at sites that were abandoned that are, 3.5 meters across, that would have been 7-8 metric tons. So that's about the size of 2 small cars. It's pretty big.
It's unclear if these stones started as money, but at some point, we don't know when, the people on Yap realized what almost all societies realized. They needed something to store value. They needed something that everyone in the society agreed you could use to pay for stuff.
And like many societies, the people of Yap took the thing that they had that was pretty, their version of gold, and they decided that was going to be money.
Now, a piece of stone money was really valuable. You wouldn't use it for some everyday purchase. You'd use it for something big, like, say, a dowry.
If somebody was in real dire straits and they were, something happened to their crop of food, or they were running low on provisions, and they had some stone money, they might trade. And some people have argued that stone money itself is probably modeled on money that was seen elsewhere.
Just bigger.
Yeah, way bigger, very ungainly to move.
So you've got your money, but it weighs as much as a car, which makes it pretty cumbersome.
And that's why this very concrete form of money quickly makes the jump to becoming something very abstract.
They often talk about the stone themselves not changing hands at all. In fact, most of the time they wouldn't, just the sheer amount of labor it would take to do it.
So, okay, imagine I own this great big stone disc sitting in the middle of our village. David, I want to use it to pay you, but I don't actually give it to you. It's just one day everybody knows it belongs to me. The next day everybody knows it belongs to you.
And things get even more abstract than that. There's a story about one time a crew of workers is bringing a big piece of stone money back to Yap on a boat. And just before they get to the island, they run into this huge storm. And the stone ends up on the bottom of the ocean.
But the workers, they make it back to Yap, and they tell everybody what happened, and everybody says, okay, no problem. That piece of stone money, it's still good, even though it's on the bottom of the ocean.
So somebody today owns this piece of stone money, even though nobody's ever seen, nobody's seen it for over 100 years or more.
Does that seem kind of amazing to you, though? Yeah, it was a huge one. It was giant and more beautiful than anything, but unfortunately I don't have it here. Man, that is the definition of abstract money.
Yeah, it really is, isn't it?
So when I first heard the story, it seemed funny to me. But then I realized, I use stone money all the time. Jacob, if I write you a check, what's really changing in the world?
I mean, I guess there's like some digits in your bank account that are sort of in my bank account now. But basically, that stone on the bottom of the ocean that you used to own, now it belongs to me.
On Yap today, stone money is still important, but mostly they use something not quite as heavy. They use the dollar. I'm David Kestenbaum.
And I'm Jacob Goldstein, NPR News.
Yeah, that brings up a really good point about money, man. If you never see the money, does it still exist?
It's such an interesting, people have all these ideas of what money is. Money has to be created by a government. Well, these are stones. People use these large stones as money. They don't even trade the stones. Like, they don't physically move the stones. They just have a community that knows who owns the stone, and they all agree on it. They've all found a way to reach consensus about who owns what. And that's really at the heart of it what money is. When you have the internet, when you're a small island, you can do that. You can have a small group of people just decide that these are the rules of money, and, that's great. But when you're a global economy where you don't really know who you're dealing with, you have to find some way to reach at that consensus of who owns what. And that's what the blockchain does. That's its purpose. It allows anonymous or pseudo-anonymous parties to engage in commerce and engage the trade of money without fear of, it's a consensus arriving mechanism and allows, no matter what, that consensus will be reached.
Yeah, it's interesting to me. It's all faith-based money, and I'm trying to imagine a world if one day we all decided as a species to do away with money. Could the world still continue? I think it was one of the Zeitgeist movies. This older gentleman was predicting a future where this could work, but there were still people who had to do certain things that were considered undesirable, like take out the trash or cook. Well, not everybody hates cooking, but that's besides the point.
Right.
But these people would have to basically do it out of love for people or whatever. They wouldn't necessarily be compensated with money, but all their needs would be met. Everybody's needs would be met. For me, that was really hard to wrap my head around because it seems like humans, we really need to have ownership of things. But when I listen to this about these big stone circles and how if they were to be sunk to the bottom of the ocean, like they still had value only because the people knew about it. But like if that culture was to be wiped out by a tsunami or something and new people were to come to the island, it would kind of be like starting over, and the previous debt and value would just be wiped away. And I don't know if I have a point here, but it's just really interesting.
Yeah, it's man-made, and you got to arrive at it in such a way where the creators of it don't have like a huge upper hand, or that you trust them. And people currently kind of trust their governments to handle their money. In Venezuela, there's 700 and some odd % inflation rate. This country was on the gold standard up until like 1911, and there was no inflation. $1 is worth $1 all the way from 1776 to 1912. I mean, there was still, for most of that, each state had its own money and things of that nature, but just kind of ignoring those parts of it. A dollar's worth a dollar. In the first year when they took us off the gold standard, a dollar became worth $1.13. Up to now, it's $100 or something. It would take $100 of current money to equal $1 in 1912.
That's just amazing.
Yeah.
What the fuck? Like a loaf of bread used to cost a nickel 100 years ago. Yeah, it's hard for me to understand that unless I can relate it to like something like bread or But even gold and silver goes up and down still. You know, it's all about how we value it, which is interesting. Like, what if we just valued each other more, and they're like valued life more, valued the planet more? Like, would we need money to as like a intermediate way to get things done? I mean, I don't see it going out of style for the next like 5 or 10 generations. I have no idea, but I definitely love the idea of cryptocurrency because it puts it more in the people's control, if that's the right term.
I think it's exactly the right term. You know, I think in a way it is. It may possibly be, you know, a freedom of speech. It may be a First Amendment issue to have money, because really all it is it's a communication channel. You know, Ethan owns one large limestone block at the bottom of the ocean. You know, and then the government come along and say, no, you can't have that bit of information. Because that's essentially what is happening now. But I should probably come up with a better way to word that. It's amazing that they have these big, large stones that they trade for money. They don't even move the stones. It's something that economists really, really enjoy thinking about. So it really turns our ideas of money up on its head. You know, you have to physically exchange the money, or at least symbolically with digits in the bank account. But that's not really necessary. All that's necessary is that people decide that there's a technology behind money that people find useful. There's reasons why people use money, and that's because it's a useful technology. It's hard to, if one chicken is worth one good cut of beef, it's hard to, take that chicken to the bonds and, take somebody's cow and cut off exactly what you want. So money just facilitates, the exchange. It facilitates the exchange, and if everybody agrees on it, then everybody benefits.
That's right. That's true. There's a book, The Richest Man in Babylon. It talks about a man wants to build a house, so he invests the money into all the workers, stonemasons, what have you. They build the house. His money now belongs to them, and they take that money and then they use it to invest in whatever they want to invest in. But his house now has the value of that money that he spent. So even though he sent the money off, he could sell his house at any time and get that money back. But the money that he sent is still out there in the economy. So I'm not sure if I'm remembering this correctly, but it's almost like he's kind of creating wealth in a way.
Yeah, and it's really it's just a statement of value. It's not. A lot of people think of money as like a zero-sum game where the amount of value is fixed in the world, and so if I make more money, then somebody else must be losing money. Or if I spend money on my house, then now I've lost that money. But if you spend money on a house, now you've built something of value, your house, and somebody still has this money.
Yeah. I like that. And I like what you said about it, how if everybody agrees to it, it can benefit everyone. Chogyam Trungpa was this Buddhist, or not, I think he's Tibetan or from Nepal. Anyways, he was a monk that taught in the 70s. And this was before the environmental green revolution. He called money green energy, probably just because of cash, the color green. But he viewed it as a way to exchange energy between people, which is kind of like a spiritual way to view money, and how, it's not necessarily evil like most people think. It's neither good nor bad. It's just a form of energy to either achieve your dreams or to be comfortable. And I don't know, I thought that was a pretty cool, refreshing look at it, as opposed to just being like the capitalist, money is the root of all evil thing. And like, no, it's not evil. It's I don't know. Would you say it's a technology in a way?
I would definitely say it's a technology, a tool maybe, but I would go with technology. And one of the major problems with it is that I think even professionals don't necessarily agree on what money is. You can have experts in your field disagreeing on it, but at its core, it's a technology that facilitates exchange.
Yeah.
In my opinion. So I think that, it's kind of funny, the original, money is the root of all kinds of evil, was I think their original expression.
You may be
Got
right.
truncated.
You're right about that.
In common culture, it's now money is the root of all evil. But originally it was just that, money causes all sorts of problems. And it does, but it also, just like any technology or tool, good people and bad people will use it. So with the blockchain, it'll help criminals, but it'll also help out, women in Afghanistan. There's one recent nonprofit. It's a nonprofit that was created in New York. It's a nonprofit that's working with. It's created by John Lilich, which probably, I don't know if he's done a lot of, his name will come up again. We might have talked about him already as well too, but he's got a lot of different kettles burning. He's got his hands in a lot of pies. And in Afghanistan, women really can't work. They can't have their money. Anything they make belongs to the family. Code to Inspire does is it has 4 goals. Learn by doing, so they take women in Afghanistan students and try to teach them how to code. And they use digital currency because if they were to give them money, then their family would just take the money from them. And so this provides certain sort of independence, social, gender inequality for Afghanistan that wouldn't be possible without cryptocurrency. So, and the reason why I'm bringing it up is Google just recently donated. They were one of the winners of their Rise Awards, which is grants that Google gives out. They give out, I think, millions of dollars. It might be billions. I'm just going to say millions. I don't know exactly how much. But they gave $25,000 to this nonprofit. So that was kind of big in the world of cryptocurrency recently.
It seems like if I had a bunch of Bitcoin or Ethereum, I would just want to circulate it because that seems like that's the name of the game, not necessarily to hoard it. When I have dollars, I just want to put it in the bank and save it. But there's something exciting about cryptocurrency, like a new frontier. It's like you can make money in all these new and creative ways, but you can also spend it much easier and more efficiently. But I mean, granted, I'm
I find the exact opposite happens to me. When I can't keep a bank account balance above, single digits. Whatever I have in my bank account, I want to spend. But with Bitcoin, I'm always trying to accumulate more and more Bitcoin. I want to spend it as well. Every Bitcoin that I spend, I want to replace. So I'm never losing Bitcoin. When it goes up in value, as I've watched as Bitcoin rises in value, it becomes more worthwhile to spend on things, and that's when I'm more likely to spend it. When it's going down in value, I'm more likely to purchase more and save up the Bitcoin. The dollars I always try
that's
to
really
spend.
Smart.
I think it's as in America, people would accuse you of being like a hoarder. You're hoarding Bitcoin, but I think in the rest of the world, it's kind of like savings. Where it's just a term for savings.
Yeah, I think that I don't know where I heard this, but America, we have such a horrible savings rate compared to Asian cultures where it's just part of their culture. They save like 80% of what they make. And we save like negative 19% or something ridiculous like that. So
yeah, that's one of the reasons why Bitcoin. I think a lot of people hate blockchain technology for that for that reason, because it's just like, wait, you can save money?
What a concept!
Yeah,
I gotta buy all this cheap plastic crap from China as soon as I can.
And that's what I feel like doing with my dollars. My dollars, I want to buy cheap plastic crap from China as quickly as possible.
Yeah, well, I think that's a post-Federal Reserve phenomenon, man. I really do.
Well, you're smart to, because it's going down in value all the time.
You're better off just getting rid of it, unless you have some really wise investment ideas or portfolios on the stock market. I mean, you can't beat the rate of inflation. Like it used to be, you could beat it with a savings account, but now it's like it's not possible. And it's crazy. They raised the minimum wage in California. I think within the next 2 years, it has to go up to $15 an hour. But it got me thinking this like tangent of how, like, what if everything else just goes up to compensate for that? Like, does that really solve a problem? I don't know.
Yeah, I wonder about minimum wages. I feel as if minimum wages, and I personally, and I think, can you make sure you edit this out?
Yeah.
If I sound too stupid, but I feel as if like a maximum wage would be so much more effective. Instead of, having the CEO of In-N-Out Burger make, hundreds upon hundreds of millions of dollars a year, to say, like, you can only make $100 million a year. That's it. That's your max, right? And the company has to figure out some other way to put that money, and I think wages would just naturally rise after that.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
But
that's what we do with our president. They can only make like $400,000 a year, which is pretty smart, I guess. But they're set for the rest of their life, so they don't have to worry about it.
I wonder if we attract some really poor talent because of that. I mean, if you're good enough to run the nation, you're probably good enough to run like a Fortune 500 company where you can make $1 billion.
Yeah, I guess.
Or do you want to run the country for $480,000?
Yeah. I guess we'll see with Donald Trump.
But it's funny. He says his net worth. He values his name at like $5 million. Like, just because his name is Trump, he's like, my net worth is $10 million, or I don't know, $10 billion or something like that. Like, yeah, the Trump name is worth $5 billion.
It's so silly. It's like having a bunch of stones at the bottom of the ocean. No, not quite.
Yeah, I like the stones at the bottom of the ocean.
Analogy.
Because it's not the stones at the bottom of the ocean. It's convincing the entire island that there's a stone there.
Right.
That's what the money is. It's like, we all agree, we have an easy way to form consensus, and boom, and that's what. And then now Bitcoin makes it so you can form consensus across the world instantaneously. If somebody sends me money from Afghanistan, I can have it, reach my phone within seconds. So they sent it. It takes a little while for it to confirm, somewhere between, to say it's like irreversible, about an hour maybe. But that's amazing.
It is.
How long do you think it takes for when somebody spends the stone at the bottom of the ocean for it to reach the entire island?
That's so funny to me. It's like, that they were trying to ship it back and forth with their bamboo canoes. And then eventually they're like, you know what, this really sucks. And it's at the bottom of the ocean. Let's just, let's quit trying to transport it and just agree. Like, I wonder if that's how Bitcoin's going to catch on. People are just like, it really sucks having these middlemen. It takes too long. There's a lot of, I don't know if corruption's the right word. And like, let's just use Bitcoin. It's better. I don't know.
I agree.
Yeah, that's cool. That is such a funny. I can't believe he values his name that much. Like, he's convinced himself. He's the only person that he's convinced that his name is worth $5. You say $5 million?
$5 billion, I think, or something like that.
Oh my God, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's like some guy on the island telling everyone that he buried a bunch of stones in the ocean. He's like, no, just believe me.
Right.
I got 5 stones at the bottom of the sea. I'll sell them to you. That's too funny, man. Yeah. Dude, why is that a horrible idea? Like, what if we lost our computers for a day? Like, what if there was such a bad solar storm that it wiped out the blockchain? Like,
yeah, I don't really.
Even if it's not the blockchain, like, it would definitely disrupt the modern banking industry because that's all digital. Like, that would be really, really bad for just like the global economy if our computers stopped working just for one day. Like our energy grids, monetary systems, food. I don't know about the food industry. Probably a large part of the food industry would suffer.
I think that as far as solar flares go, they're not very likely to affect computer systems. I know the power grids would go down.
Yeah, that's probably more likely.
If there were something that would wipe out computers, there's probably some way to keep like a backup copy of it safe, and then reboot it. Restart it if everybody lost theirs. You'd only have to have a few different nodes. So you could probably find a way to keep, a copy of the blockchain. I think it's still under like 500 gigabytes, which is, it's kind of large for a person, but it's not really that large. Standard laptop could handle that. So maybe back one up every, day or so.
That's amazing. I didn't know it was that small, relatively small.
Yeah, Ethereum is only like 6 or so. I don't know what Dogecoin is at now as far as blockchain size go. It's kind of interesting.
Dogecoin just sounds like a bro currency. I don't know why. Maybe just the sound. Yo, bro, I'll give you some Doge. Like a frat boy thing.
It definitely targets that audience a little bit more. It's not for your anarchists. It's for your, bros.
I wonder if it's going to be like, how there's Facebook, there's Instagram, Twitter, all these social media platforms, and everyone just kind of, if you're a website, you have all these little buttons to click at the bottom. Like, I wonder if it's going to be like that for a while. You have all these accepted forms of currency. Really, all I see now is Bitcoin, but I guess MySpace didn't make it. So yeah.
Yeah, I think you're definitely onto something. Let me send you something. Yeah, he makes the joke about, like, could you imagine if there was a Justin Bieber coin?
Oh my God.
It would immediately be better than at least 15 regular currencies in the world. It would have more value than that.
What does that say about our world?
Yeah. That says people like Justin Bieber.
Man. It's because of the internet. I don't know if he would have survived without the internet.
Yeah. Who discovered him? Was it like Dr. Dre or something?
It was Usher.
Oh, it was Usher.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks, Usher.
We're going to talk a little bit about Regis, but might be good to wait for that guy to do the interview. But that came out this week.
Okay.
Or Regis is I can read you a little bit from their main site or from their blog. One of the features of public registries is that they are open. This means that anyone can request the registration for the title of the home I live in and the real estate I own, for example. They are meant to be public, in order to get a real estate registration, one would just need to know the location and request the paperwork form at the local registry. In Brazil, it's not that simple. Real estate registries in Brazil are profit-driven private entities authorized to work by the central government. And here's where some problems start to appear. If you have more than one registry for real estate in a given city, how do you know which registry the specific apartments you're interested in is registered? Without asking the owners, it's impossible to know. You need to personally go to each registry company, spend time on their queue, and check if that particular registry has the registration you're looking for. São Paulo, the largest city in Brazil, has 18 real estate registries, and their records are not unified. So, that's one of the use cases for what Daniel Novi, I'm not sure if that's how you pronounce his name, it has created with Consensus and with his Regis.nu. He's trying to make it so that you can make any registry easy. You don't have to have any code. There's a user interface. It's kind of lacking documentation right now, but you can kind of see where it's going, and so that will be you're able to register things on the blockchain. You have like a permanent record now. You can transfer those records. So I found that really interesting.
Yeah, that's going to really help out a lot of people, especially Brazil. That is a fuck show down there with regards to the housing market, from what I hear.
And another use would be like stud horses. So in order to get the pedigree of a horse, depending on what their parents did, and so you have all these different bookmakers or book havers that you have to trust what they're telling you is true, and you can always pay them to get incorrect information added to their stud books. So that'd be a good place for registry. The DMV could go away. People could register their cars on it.
God, I can't wait for that.
I think that the blockchain is certainly the one really great option, which would vastly improve over the options that we have now.
Yeah, I mean, like you could have it so that if your car's not registered, it just doesn't turn on, right?
Absolutely.
It's so much better. It's like infinitely better. I've wasted so much of my life at the DMV here. Yeah.
And the DAO just went live for funding, so you can own the DAO. The DAO is the word DAO is an acronym for decentralized autonomous organization. And what one company, Slockit, created was so they would be the contractor, and the DAO would contract them to make their locks. And so they created the DAO, and now you can crowdfund it. Currently, right now, I think it's got to be like the largest. It's been a crowdfunding, just started today. $5.5 million worth of the equivalent in Ethereum have been spent on these DAO creation.
Dude, I feel like such an idiot. I thought you were talking about the Dow Jones at first.
Yeah, the DAO. So they call it the DAO.
Yeah.
And it is a decentralized autonomous organization. A specific one that is going to let people fund the DAO. And, by funding it, you just send your Ethereum to a wallet controlled by the DAO, and that gives you voting rights and how the DAO is going to, what projects it's going to fund. And so these launched today and raised $5.5 million.
That's so much, so fast.
That's a lot. Yeah, and so they're going to do, 27 more days of funding. And then the DAO, which is, a brand new, nobody really knows what a digital autonomous organization is. It's we don't really have the legal terms for even like a cryptocurrency yet. We haven't figured out what a cryptocurrency is in this world. But a DAO has only been like talked about in like science fiction writing. What does it mean to have a organization without a CEO, where it only just has members voting on the best interests of what the DAO can do?
That's the way the country should be run, honestly.
Hey, why not?
I mean, that could be the future. Huh.
I think voting is a good use of the blockchain. One of the problems with it is, though, for voting, you kind of have to be public in a way. Because you can do voting on the blockchain with, letting people know who you are and who you voted for. But it's tougher to do, one person, one vote, but then that's also anonymous.
Yeah, that gets tricky quickly. And really it would have to be like you do away with all your representatives and you vote on every single issue, but I don't think that'll ever happen. There's too many people that just don't care about, have you ever watched C-SPAN? It's so boring, and there's so much like small things you got to sit through to get to what you're actually trying to watch.
It's ridiculous the way
and you got all these assholes doing a filibuster. It's like, oh God, come on. Like literally reading from a phone book just to delay a vote. There's so much nonsense. But that's really interesting about the DAO.
Yeah, so that's what I'm trying to buy. That's why I was trying to buy some before we started this podcast.
So if you buy it, you have voting rights. Like, do you have to... Like, how does it work? Does, like, the money that you use to buy it go towards what you're voting for? Or is that just a membership fee?
So you don't get to exactly choose what projects the DAO is going to want. You get to choose by voting how the DAO itself handles it. But so if if the vast majority of people want to put a man on the moon regardless of the price, and that's what happens. And so there's ways to actually split the DAO if you really think that they're going the wrong way about it, and you want to split the DAO. You could be like, no, I don't want to go to the moon. There's enough of us that don't want to do that as well, so we're going to create 2 DAOs. And so all the funding that all the people who have DAO rights, who want to go to the moon, have their own DAO, and then all the people who don't go over there. And that's kind of a way to prevent like a hostile takeover. Because it's anonymous, you can like buy 51% of the votes in theory, and then just say like, oh, what I'd like to do in this DAO is send all the money to myself, right? And so this kind of like makes it a moot point because you send all the money to yourself, but because of this DAO splitting thing, now the people would be like, yeah, I know you agreed to that, but we're just going to split the company. You'll get all your shares back. And so all the money you put in, you just get back, and we just take the rest of the DAO. So it's kind of a way to circumvent that. So there'll be like multiple projects going around, and a contract that might be like a modular car contract. Let's see if I can't find that one for you.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I have a lot of learning to do on this one.
It's the thing of it is everybody does. This is brand new. I mean, this is not something that anybody knows about.
So can any company use this technology, or does each company have to create its own DAO?
Well, a lot of people.
I'm just not sure if it's like one thing you're talking about, or like an idea that's going to become several DAOs, if that makes sense.
There'll be several projects going on in this one DAO. Other people would have their own DAOs as well, or other DAOs would exist. The DAO would work with certain contractors to either make products or services that the DAO would either then sell or use.
I see.
One of the things they want to do is like a modular car. I'll have to. I'm going to say this for another day.